I would probably take an average 1-2 grinder playing his A game over an average 25-50 grinder playing his C game any day.
You're listening to the Mindset Advantage podcast. Each week, you'll get to peek inside the greatest minds in the game and discover what makes them successful.
Mental toughness separates those that can't handle the stress.
If you're going to treat it like an amateur, you're probably going to have amateur results.
Now here's your host, Elliot Rowe.
Hey, Elliot Rowe here. I'm very excited to announce that for the next few episodes, Stephen Baker will be guest hosting the show. Stephen has experience both as a professional poker player, strategic coach, and now a member of my mindset performance coaching world. I can confidently say that Stephen's one of the world's leading experts in poker mindset and performance, and I'm really excited to hear the conversations he has with some fantastic guests. And with that, here's Stephen.
Welcome to the Mindset Advantage podcast. My name's Stephen Baker, and I'm a performance coach. My guest on today's podcast is Martin Jacobson. Martin needs little introduction for those of you who follow tournament poker. He has an outstanding record stretching back years. Perhaps his most famous achievement was his win in the World Series of Poker Main Event in 2014, when he came from the short stack on the final table with just 7 big blinds to go on and win the event. That was a demonstration not only of his technical skills, but also of his mindset. And today we'll be looking at how Martin has developed the soft skills, the intangibles, alongside his technical skills. Martin's also now moving outside poker, and we're going to be looking at his life beyond poker and the skills he will take with him from his time in poker into his life beyond. So without further ado, let's get to it and let's share in Martin's wisdom. So Martin, welcome. Great to meet you. I just want to really start in the way that I suppose a lot of these podcasts start, by asking how you first got into poker, because I understand that your original career plan was extremely different to poker. I understand you were thinking of becoming a chef.
Yeah, that was the original plan, and that's how I started my early career, I suppose. I went to culinary school when I was 16, graduated there, joined the military service for a year, and it was during this time period where I discovered poker. It was during the poker boom back in 2004, 2005. And I just fell in love with the game and got really, really into it, a lot more so than my friends. So they eventually lost interest and didn't want to play with me anymore because I was winning most of the time because I had more patience than they did. And I was also studying the game when I realized that there was an edge to be had. And then eventually I started playing online, and that's where I had some early success, and I realized I could actually make money doing this.
Okay, now this is interesting. I just want you to help me understand how you progressed, because obviously there you go. You're like a lot of people. You find yourself having an edge over the field at an early stage in your career. But let's just talk about some of the more difficult moments, because for most people, the path isn't smooth. And I actually read that the first time you won a big package to the World Series, that was an interesting moment where you had a decision. And I remember actually having something similar myself when I won a package to the World Series of Poker Europe. Do I keep the cash or do I play? And something similar happened to you. But perhaps you can describe that and any other interesting points where there were a bit of challenging moments along the way.
Yeah, so my first big win, I would say, was winning a package to the 2008 World Series of Poker Main Event. And back then you had the option to either pocket the cash, which was $12,000, unheard of money back then for me. It was probably the equivalent to almost a year's salary at that point. So I had a real decision to make. And also I didn't have much. I'd never played a live tournament before. But that being said, my biggest dream was, of course, to go to Vegas and to pursue at least trying to play the main event and see how it goes and experience it for myself. And I realized that this might be the opportunity that I have. So yeah, not knowing what to do, what the smart thing to do would be, and so on. I asked my mom, and she knew how much I was into poker, so she was actually the one that told me that, of course, you're going to go to Vegas and play. So that sort of made it easy. So I went to Vegas by myself, 20 years old, didn't have a budget or rich enough friends to just come with me to Vegas to play a poker tournament. So I went there by myself, celebrated my 21st birthday 3 days before the main. Played the main. I was obviously very excited and had anticipated this moment for a long time. I prepared intensively. I packed a backpack full of meals that I was going to consume throughout the day and drinks and planning my breaks and all that stuff. I show up 30 minutes before the tournament just to get a feel for it. I walk around, I sit down, and then the third hand in, I'm eliminated from the event.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think what's really important for everybody to take away here is that, I mean, I think a lot of people would have been put off by that, right? First experience of a live tournament, a big buy-in, 3 hands in, you're going. I don't know whether you were literally going home at that point, but in terms of that tournament, it's all over, and a few years later, things turn around in a very significant way. I just want to really talk about that, because that, in a sense, was a little sign of mental resilience, that you took that on the chin and came back for more. And I just want to talk really about the importance of the mental game from your viewpoint. You've been a long time in poker, and you've obviously experienced some highs and lows. Could you just share with everybody, how you see the importance of mindset, the mental game, and maybe some of the other non-technical intangibles which contribute to success?
Yeah, if winning the package was my first big win, then being eliminated from the main event so abruptly, and I was arguably the first person eliminated from the tournament. So back then, it would have been a huge milestone just to make dinner break, day one. Like, that would have been felt really good, even though I was far from cashing. So yeah, getting eliminated so early was definitely my first real setback in my early poker career. So it was tough to overcome. I felt really empty right after. I remember going back to some friends that I met previously that were also poker players, or they were actually, one of them was a professional poker player. So he was my first friend that I made during that trip in Vegas. And I was returning his backpack that I borrowed, and they thought I came back so early that they thought that I must have forgotten something. So they were very confused. But yeah, no, I stayed in Vegas for the rest of the week, and I got over it pretty quickly and made some friends through poker that I stayed in touch with afterwards, and that I've actually keep in touch with even today. So I've never regretted the decision I made to go and pursue the opportunity that presented itself. Whether, even though I would result in hand, I lost $12,000, which was a lot of money, which is a lot of money. But yeah, and then if anything, I got like a blooded tooth, and I just wanted to keep pursuing it and turn things around. I think it kind of sparked the competitiveness in me that I wanted to prove to myself and to others that this was just a quick setback, but I actually got something here, and I know I can turn this around.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want you to really talk through. I mean, obviously that was not the most easy start to experience in the World Series of Poker, but things turned around very significantly. And as everybody listening to this will know, you went on to win the main event. And in fact, even within that, you came back from a very difficult position on the final table. I just wanted you to maybe talk about things you've done to improve the non-technical aspects of your poker performance. And this is going to also be relevant to perhaps non-poker spheres as well. What kind of things you do? Because I know, having looked at your YouTube channel, you do embrace the idea of performance very holistically. Perhaps you could talk about these non-technical elements of performance, high performance.
Yeah, I think even the fact that I prepared my meals for the first poker tournament I was going to play, and even planned my breaks, goes to show that I've always taken my preparation very seriously, even back then. And then as I eventually took the step to become professional poker player, it's just escalated since, and it's gotten to a point where I take it extremely seriously. So I always try to strive for new ways to gain myself an edge, to perform better. Like, performance is something that I've always put a lot of emphasis on, because poker as a sport or competition, whatever you may call it, is very performance based. Like, you got to focus on the outcome that you can actually control, and that is your performance, right? We can't control the luck element of the game and the short-term stuff. That's just whatever happens. But if you always focus on your process and your performance, then eventually everything else will follow.
Absolutely. I mean, you've already touched on how much you were thinking about the process, thinking about breaks. So, yeah, in terms of controlling those processes, could you perhaps share with everybody some of your key routines? What it might look like for you if you're playing a big live event or a big live series. What are your key routines? What's your morning routine? What's your pre-game preparation? What kind of thing does that look like? And also maybe touch on the breaks and post game as well. How do you deal with that? Because I know that's challenging for a lot of people.
Yeah, I would say this is probably the biggest challenge of being a professional poker player, to cope with the mental struggles and the mental aspect of the game. Just playing the game is, pretty much anyone can do that if you just study and play, but be able to execute, especially when things aren't going your way, that's a much tougher question. So my routine when it comes both online and live tournaments looks quite similar. I've always been a big proponent of exercise. I think that's key. At least it works for me very well. I feel like, because we're sitting so much, I need to move and get that blood flow going. So I always try to do some lighter type of workout on the days I play, because in the past I've experimented and I've done longer runs or lifted like for long sessions before playing, and then realized that I'm just depleting my energy levels that way. So I'm very, very aware that to not do that anymore, and to be very to really save up those energy loads for a big session. So I really try to limit the time I exercise right before I play, and try to keep it at a moderate pace, so the exercise actually gives me more energy than it takes that day. And then obviously other days when I'm not playing, I go harder to build up conditioning and strength and this stuff. I also like to meditate before my sessions. I meditate every morning, even days I don't play, but especially on the days I play.
It's interesting. I've got a new personal trainer at the moment, and trying to get the balance. We all want to get fitter, but reality is, like, it's quite hard. And I've got 5 pretty damned hard workouts a week. And I'm actually having to say to him, look, I want to just dial it back, because I need enough mental energy and physical energy to get through the day.
Yeah, exactly.
It's sort of,
that's the thing. Yeah, all these personal trainers and fitness experts, they're telling us you should work out 4 or 5 times a week, and you should include all these aspects of in your training. But they might not realize that what you're doing in the rest of the day is actually very energy demanding as well. So if you're working out 4 or 5 times a week and you have a full-time job, you don't actually have enough time to recover to actually get something out of those workouts, because recovery is key. And that's something else that I come to realize throughout my career, and that is also why I don't push myself too hard before, especially before I play, but also the day after I played an intense session, or if I'm in Vegas for an entire summer and I'm playing most days, even the days I don't play, I don't push myself too hard in the gym, or I try not to at least, because I know that if I do that, then the next day I'm going to need time to recover from that workout. But then maybe that day I also have a big tournament coming up, and I don't want any sort of interference there in my ability to perform.
Oh, exactly. And I think what people underestimate, people might be thinking, well, wait a minute, if you're sat at a poker table, surely that's recovery from a physical workout. But part of recovery is mental. And
100%.
if you're working extremely hard the next day mentally, well, that is a drain on your mental resources. And if you're working hard in a workout, that is a drain on your mental resources. So I think, for sure, you have to, I would say during series, you have to go quite light. And that's fine. If you've got a year-long program where you're consistent, it's fine to sort of effectively periodize in that way, back off a little during a big series, and sure, just keep ticking over and not go too hard. Treat it more as almost like a mental and physical warm-up rather than being full gas during that period.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay then, Martin. So I just want to talk a bit more about the mindset aspect of the game. Could you share with us, have you had any coaching on this aspect of the game, and what kind of techniques have you learned to make your mindset and the non-technical aspects of the game stronger?
I did have a mental coach back in the day. His name is Brian Kane. He doesn't specifically work with poker players. He mostly works with pro athletes, and he's coached NBA, NFL, MLB, UFC fighters, all sorts. So he has a system in place that he uses for all of his clients, and it works really well in sports, specific sports, with how to get into the zone, how to stay focused, and really focus on the process rather than the outcome, which is for sure very useful in poker because there is such a huge element of luck involved. So to stay focused on the one thing that you can control.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if there's one thing from a mindset point of view, you're constantly, and I'm constantly working with my clients on, is focusing on process rather than outcomes. As you say, probably, I mean, there's more luck in even a lot of sports than people care to recognize. But the truth of the matter is, poker, there is often a very big divide, at least in the short term, between, the work you put in, the quality of your decisions and the results you get, but focusing on keeping that quality high as a process will ultimately bring rewards. So let's just move now. I'm really interested in what the future holds for you, Martin, because I know that you are now contemplating a life after poker. And I'd just like you to share a little bit about that. What does that look like? What are your plans and what is your vision?
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out at the moment. I've actually been contemplating leaving poker numerous times throughout my career. The first time, I believe, was in 2013, the year I won the main event. So it's proven to be harder than it might seem, or at least I was anticipating. I think it's partly difficult because, well, once you've been doing something for very long, especially from an early age, it sort of becomes your identity. You build your whole community around this one aspect of your life, all your friends, your lifestyle, you're getting used to a certain routine. You're building a very unique skill set that you might not know, or at least I don't know exactly where that might fit in outside of poker. So that's kind of what I'm juggling with right now, trying to find sort of a market fit for my unique skills and capabilities and where I can be useful and use the skill set that I've developed throughout my poker career and actually putting them to good use in a different area and hopefully make a difference somewhere else.
Excellent. And have you got any items on the short list yet, or is it literally a completely open space in terms of where you are thinking of taking this?
I've always been fascinated by business and especially smaller businesses. I like company structure and like how you, especially startups, where you have an idea that it starts off as an idea and then you build a business plan and then you get together and you brainstorm and then you execute on the business and you raise money and you build a prototype and you launch and all of that stuff. Like I'm really into that, especially if it has a strong purpose and it solves a legitimate problem. Ideally something impactful like environmental or helping other people in certain ways. So I think I'm heading that direction. I'm not sure exactly how, whether it's on the entrepreneurial side or the investment side. I do think that maybe my skill set is better used to on the investment side and as an advisory role or being involved, but not maybe on the day-to-day basis. I would like to what I've figured out so far is that I would like to work in a team or work with other people because that's something that I've really missed throughout my poker career. It is a very lonely game at times, even though I've built some amazing relationships and friendships along the way. You're still competing for yourself and you're competing versus your friends. And I don't really like that. I would prefer to share all the ups and downs with other people and to problem solve together rather than as an individual.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one thing's for sure. I know I have a number of clients who were poker players and who've transitioned into business, and there's absolutely no doubt that the skills you develop, the mental resilience, the ability to invest and take risks in a calculated fashion will serve you extremely well in the kind of environment you're talking about. So I've absolutely no doubt you have the skills to do that. And you're right, it is one of the biggest challenges, I think, of a poker career, the sense of isolation, even if you build a network, because you're right, ultimately, when you're making those decisions, you're on your own. So yeah, absolutely. I wish you all the best in that. I just want to really talk about your legacy for poker. Obviously, your comeback in the 2014 final table will live long in the memory because it was, as I recall, I think you were 7 big blinds on the final table. I think you must have been the short stack, literally the short stack, and possibly scheduled to go out in 9th at that point. But you came back. That's one legacy. But one thing I really want to point out to people who are listening and watching the podcast is your poker course, because I have to say I've got a number of clients who are non-professional poker players who are looking to get a lot of impact in a short amount of time from their poker learning. And I've seen your course, and it's absolutely fantastic because it's very much based on a philosophy I believe in, which is creating short, effective heuristics to understand how to make decisions. And I'd just like you to talk about that. The link to your course will be in the show notes for everybody, but I'd highly recommend it. But could you talk a little bit about the thinking behind the course, how you created it, why you created it, and why, in my view, it's so effective?
So I started coaching during COVID because I really missed, one of the things that I missed the most was the social aspect. And I guess that just goes to show that I actually need the social side of things more than I probably anticipated, because I've always viewed myself as quite introverted. So it started off, a friend of mine, for Jatin, he was doing coaching, group coaching through Zoom, and he wanted me to make an appearance, and then one thing led to another, and then we launched a course together. It went really well, but I realized that there were certain things that the students were really after, and they wanted to learn. They wanted to learn and then execute, and then trial and error. They weren't interested in investing too much time into this. They just wanted to hear the secret sauce, how can I improve in the shortest amount of time. And that, I think, in conjunction with me doing an online MBA at the time, which had a similar concept, where I did an MBA online program, which instead of spending 100,000 in 2 years in a traditional school, you do it online in 15-minute modules every day. And I really liked that concept. That it was very very intuitive and community based. You can have a chat with the teachers and communicate with the other students. So I wanted to do a similar concept to poker coaching, because I saw a gap in the market, because I know myself, when I've signed up I've taken all these courses myself, and most of them are very long, and they're very time and energy consuming. And they're all based and structured in pretty much the same way. It's a 60-minute video with a great player going through a specific spot for 60 minutes. So I was trying to sort of use the 80-20, the 20-80 principle, and boiling it down to the core concepts and what the main focus points are to actually improve in poker, and what I've learned throughout my career. So I put together this course, and it's called the Prepare and Perform program, because as you know, my focus is always on the preparation, and if you prepare and then you're able to perform. So that name sort of came natural to me. And I had a lot of enjoyment in putting it together, and also working with a lot of the students that signed up, because even though it's short and it's just 15-minute videos, I also wanted it to be somewhat personalized. So all the students, they have direct access to me. They can ask questions about the course if there's something that it's unclear or that they want to work more on, free of charge. I'm always responsive. So that's been great as well. And I found that to be much more efficient than to schedule Zoom courses every week for a set at a set schedule. So it's better, works better for me, works better for the students. It's much more flexible, and it's much more time efficient, because they can learn a concept and then they can go out and play and try to execute it on their own, and then they can come back and provide feedback and if it worked or not.
Fantastic. Yeah. And I mean, to be honest with you, even for professionals, a 15-minute reminder of a core concept and some clear heuristics which they can use in game, it still has a huge value. But for as you say, this idea of a minimum effective dose using the 80-20 principle, I mean, it comes back to our discussion about fitness as well. Everything has to work in the context of your real life. And there's no point saying, well, I mean, I think the reality is people buy a lot of these courses, and the evidence seems to be that most of them sit in somebody's Google Drive or wherever they keep it. And, they might get to lesson 2 of 27 and not beyond, because they are just so demanding in terms of time and effort. But actually getting through a course which gives you clarity on key concepts is absolutely valuable. So, as I say, anybody watching and listening, if you're looking for some real clarity on core concepts where people get it wrong so often, really have a look at Martin's course. It's absolutely fantastic. Well, Martin, thank you so much for being so generous with your time and your thoughts and your insights. You've had an extremely long and successful poker career, and I'm absolutely sure you're going to move on to bigger and better things, even more outside poker, because of the skills and the whole professionalism of the way you approach everything. So thank you again.
Thanks a lot, Stephen. It's been great.
You've been listening to the Mindset Advantage podcast. To get future episodes delivered to you automatically, make sure to subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, or your favorite podcasting service. To get any resources mentioned in the episode or to listen to past shows, visit pokermindcoach.com/TMA podcast. Thanks for listening.